Good morning. My name is Henk van den Heuvel. I'm a data steward at my university at the Faculty of Arts, and I'm also active in a group called DALAT. This is an initiative to share corpora of speech from people with speaking disorders, and bringing this together makes a mix of sharing sensitive data and how to deal with this. So I developed a course consisting of 3 parts. The first part is a privacy, an introduction into privacy by design. Second part is a group discussion based on a use case. And the third part is a data protection impact assessment role play. This is not an online course. It is a course I offer and which comes with myself. So when you're interested in this course, you can contact me, and then we will develop the use cases together so that we can have an optimal match between what you would like to be involved in, what the challenges are that you face at your university or your organization, and then we can make such use cases together. So now something more about the various parts. So the introduction is directed towards what is personal data, what is GDPR and what has it to do with research, the 8 principles of privacy by design. So it's about data minimization, accountability, the rights of the data subjects, the purpose of the research, and so on. You can see a nice video here, which you can click the link and see a video that we have at our own university, which clearly explains what these privacy principles are. I will also go into elements of informed consent, because this is typically the legal basis that is used for doing research with the participants. And I also have a little block on personal data and social media, and how can you collect and process and analyze data which you collect from social media. So that is part 1. It's an introduction. Then there's the second part, which is discussion of a use case, which then is developed together with the customer. That's you, if you would like to have this course from me. This is an example from a course which I gave in Italy. And well, if you read this use case, you can see there are quite some aspects to it. It is about linguist biographies, which are collected, but it's also from young children and older children. Is there a difference between that? Can you collect these? Can you process these? Can you even share these? And then some of the teachers already have such recordings, and others are going to make them. Well, what is all up to that? Well, we do this use case and we discuss this then guided by a couple of questions. So who are the stakeholders in this project? Which existing data is used? Which new data is generated? Which personal data is involved? What is the legal basis according to the GDPR to collect or share this data? Is there what we call special category data in the sense of GDPR? Where will the data be stored during and after the project, and can it be shared? And what will be the access levels for that? And these questions are then discussed in groups, and then there's a plenary feedback. And also there we have the problems that arose, the challenges that they see, and then we can discuss this together. So that's the second part. And then the third part is data protection impact assessment role play for another use case. That use case is again developed by the people who invite me. And then we go to play a role play which was developed in the DALAT steering group. And there's a lot of information about such role play. I give the links on this slide so that you can have a look at it. So such a DPA is a data protection impact assessment and required under the GDPR when processing or the use of new technology is likely to cause a high risk to the rights and freedoms of data subjects. So this is all then focused around what are the protection goals in terms of confidentiality, integrity, unlinkability, availability, intervenability, and transparency. And around this concept, I'm sorry, we develop a multi-stakeholders approach in which the participants take a role and then start thinking from that role of what their contribution can be. And the risk assessment is then made and based on protection goals. So what do we need for that role play? Well, the use case, then we have role cards, and there are several roles: researcher, ethics member, security IT expert, legal know-how, representatives of the participants, and the data manager of the archive. Then we have a template for a report, and that report is about, okay, what risks do we see and what are possible solutions to overcome these risks? Or are there no solutions to overcome that risk? And that altogether then leads to this risk assessment and to a final conclusion. So there will be players, and typically we have 2 players per role. And that's then the way this role play is being done and completed into a report. So this course, consisting of 3 parts, typically takes half a day, say 3.5 hours with a break inside. So if you find it interesting, please feel free to contact me, and we're happy to discuss it further. Thank you.
A very biased view of the French of syntax and French syntax, and most of my students, they want to be primary school teachers, and they need to know a lot about all the structures that appear in French, right? And so at some point, it was during a little before COVID, but of course, during the COVID, I had to produce a lot of quizzes, and I had this aha moment. Okay, what if we could use those annotations from the universal dependencies corpora and just magically make them, transform them into Moodle quizzes. Of course, the magic is all in the Python scripts. Okay, so if you want to have a look at the my GitHub repository, it's over here. If we have time, I'll show you how it really works on my Moodle courses, but here it won't be a real demo. It's more about screen captures, and if you're interested, we can chat about that later on. Okay, so I'm not expecting anyone to read anything from this. It's just that the magic is in the scripts and the parameters. And here you can't see anything from afar, but I've inserted a screen capture of the parameters that allow me to generate different types of quizzes that are adapted for different proficiency levels. I haven't really talked about that, but before generating quizzes, you need to know, okay, do you have, in your audience, do you have beginners, intermediate, or advanced proficiency levels in syntax? And this hasn't been defined for French, so it's not really straightforward. So here I control a lot of the basic parameters of my quizzes, like how many distractors, what subset of the post tags or the functions I want, and a lot of stuff. So you might want to go to the GitHub project. Of course, there's some Python involved, and I won't go in details. I won't talk about any details here, but if you want to have a look at them, feel free to head over to my repository, or we can talk about it if you want. The most important part here is that at some point I am able to generate that kind of stuff, meaning this is a basic question that is meant to be integrated into a quiz, question back, okay, and maybe you are familiar with the gift format. If you're not familiar, it basically allows you to state a general header, say how the content is structured. Okay, it's plain text, HTML, or Markdown in this case. And this part here generated automatically. It's the header of each question. So it depends on the sentence, the actual words being processed. This is the sentence, so it's very basic for now. And then you have all the structures and the correct answer. Okay, so that's the gift format. This comes out of my scripts based on the corpora, and then at some point I integrate that into a Moodle question bank, and if all runs well, it ends up in my Moodle course. Okay, so I can use that. So this is a quiz on parts of speech, and there's a quiz on functions too. This is basically the same idea. For the time being, I only have quizzes like that because it's hard to integrate, dependency graphs or constituents tree in Moodle directly. So I'm trying to do what I can with what I have. What I mean is that Moodle is not, it's good because once those questions are generated, and I'm talking about thousands of questions, you can share that with your colleagues or with people from elsewhere. Okay, so if you want to have a look at these subset of the questions that I have already generated, you can head to my repository. I have some, 2,000 questions on parts of speech. They're not all interesting because they have been generated automatically. So there's a lot of work that has to be done to sort of make them interesting for the different proficiency levels. Okay. And then most of the questions on grammatical words are about prepositions like the, so it's not really interesting. Okay. So I have a lot of exercises, but it still needs a lot of work to sort of make that into a usable and interesting set of exercises. Okay, so just a quick word on what I do with that. Moodle gives you some stats about the exercises, so you kind of know, you can sort of determine if some question is harder or easier, but it's not really enough because you don't have for example, you can't track how much time each user has spent on a single question. Okay, you can track how much time they have used for the whole exercise, but you can't track time, the processing time per question. Okay, this is why I'm developing a new module, which is a standalone renderer for the questions. Okay, so that I can demonstrate what those questions do outside of Moodle, because you're not a part of, you're not university the lead student, so you can't. I can't. What's the word? Enroll you in my course. So this is something new, and it gives you access. It keeps track of the processing time for each question. So it's something that Google doesn't do. Okay. Stop here. So future developments, new modules. So I've applied for funding, and this project is under evaluation by the French CNRS as we speak. So these are the main modules that are to be developed, and as I was saying, we can't do anything without a proper proficiency, syntax proficiency level definition. So that's in the works, and other aspects that my time is up. So I'll stop here, but you can find them on my slide, and I will develop that tomorrow.
Okay. I'm professor of computational linguistics in Bergen, Norway, and in the old days I used to teach programming in Lisp and all those old-fashioned languages, but we have to move with the times. Nowadays, students want Python. I've looked for a lot of Python courses that could be relevant, and I didn't find any that was suitable for exactly my purpose. Because, okay, what is our target group and relevance? the main audience is undergraduate students in linguistics and language studies, and most of those don't have any programming skills. It's also popular with students, in fact, at all levels of in information science, communication and media studies. I get students from cognitive science, from digital culture, computer science, even digital security and others. For the undergraduate students in linguistics, this is an obligatory course. And the idea is to teach them, first of all, how to use textual data and language-related qualitative data, because they might, need some of that to do their bachelor thesis or later their master's thesis. And it's also a preparation for more advanced language modeling courses that come at master's level, where they will do language modeling, sentiment analysis, and so on. You basically cannot do that without knowing at least some Python. What is learned? Well, basic knowledge and skills in Python programming, such as data types, functions, etc., etc. And then very quickly, it moves to manipulation of textual data. So string methods, regular expression, search and replace, is very important. And then we get to tokenization of frequencies with the natural language toolkit, etc. Then analysis and visualization of quantitative data, because a lot of data that our students need to work with are tables, okay? Basically tabular data that come from, whatever source. It could be from questionnaires, from experiments, because we also offer experimental psycholinguistics, etc. And then, of course, the relevance for this audience is that I wanted to bring in some CLARIN. So we worked at access to corpora and other data provided by CLARIN, and also some provided by other sources. So that means getting text and also getting quantitative data in HTML, CSV, JSON, etc. And in fact, just an hour ago or so, Dieter van Uitvaart talked about providing more APIs in CLARIN, and I hope to actually integrate that in my course increasingly. Finally, the course offers an introduction to the DH Lab at the National Library of Norway, and it's a little bit unfortunate that at this moment the DH Lab is presented in the other session. But okay, so they offer concordances, engrams, and word galaxies based on the whole holdings of the total digitized collections of the National Library, and you can access that directly from Python, which is really great. Teaching my students how to do that. Okay, what are the learning modes? Originally, the course was intended to support my classroom teaching, but I found out it's also suitable for self-study. So instead of having it in a university course, I made it into an open course. So what are then the learning methods? First, there's an introduction to challenges in working with natural language text. Students have to first understand, what is the problem. Then there is a core of Jupyter notebooks with Python code and explanation. So the idea is to learn programming by example. I give them examples, and then I give them exercises like, okay, now make a variation on that example. Try to do something interesting with it. There is use of corpus data and secondary data extracted from corpora and CLARIN, and other online resources like, how do you extract text from web pages? How do you read CSVs? How do you get JSON from APIs? Every notebook has easy exercises, but at the end there's also a list of larger projects that students can do to sort of test their skills and apply them. It's an open course. It's available at the University of Bergen, but the notebooks themselves are on Google Colab, and the reason is really that for our students, I cannot really expect them to install Python and download and install all the libraries that they need, etc. So the advantage with Colab is as long as you have a Google account, you can get started. You get the URL and you immediately start executing the notebook. The course itself is open. It's licensed under Creative Commons. I have a citation here. The course is listed on the CLARIN Learning Hub. It's also listed on the area campus and on the DH course registry. Finally, what's my experience with the course? It is quite successful and well liked by diverse groups. Although I must also add, some students really have programming, but I think they would have problems with programming anyway. Some students just don't program. That's a little bit tough, actually. I mean, you can expect, for example, computer science students to program. Can you expect linguistics students and other students in digital humanities, can you expect that they program? We think yes, but it's an open question for discussion, you know, and how far can you actually require that from students? We did have good experience with Google Colab, which is an easy programming environment, but the disadvantage is it does not have academic governance. And we also looked at other platforms like Kaggle, DeepNote, etc. They don't have academic governance, so we are dependent on a commercial environment, which is not so great. It would really be great if somehow the academic world or the plan could get together and offer something similar to Google Colab, but something non-commercial. Then for myself, I think quizzes for self-testing would be a great addition. Right now I have exercises, but not really quizzes, but I'm working on quizzes, so they will be added. It would also be nice to use even more CLARIN resources as example data, but few are suitable. And in particular, I think more data should be accessible via APIs or by links to fully open CSV, so you can immediately import those in Python programs. So if you have any suggestions, if you have any ideas, please talk to me, and I can later also demo the course if you like during the bazaar.
This is going to be a bit off topic in a sense, so I'll try to make it more on topic, but the slides are sort of off what I'll be partially talking about. One of the problems with working in BH with the NLP is that BH very often works with less resource materials. So not only less resource languages, but also less resource topics like poetry, for which NLP tools typically don't work very well. So in many DH resources, the researchers working on those kind of domains are at a strong disadvantage because NLP tools make working with corpora a lot more useful. So we set up a pilot or something to sort of overcome that. To build resources as part of a training course. So you teach people how NLP works, and while they're doing that, they also build the resources that they can actually use as NLP toolkits. Because there are a lot of NLP tools out there that can easily be trained nowadays, but what is missing for the less resource material or domains is simply training data. And building training data is relatively easy, especially if you don't have to do dependencies and grammatical relations, but if you only need to do speech tagging and memorization, which is for many DH researchers is actually what they need. They are typically not that interested in dependencies. They should be, but they typically. Quite a while ago, back in 2012, I think, I built something called Purpose Wiki, which we used exactly for this purpose. So at the University of Pompeu Fabra in Barcelona, as a course for translators, so people that have no background, not only not in computational science, but also not in linguistics and such, but needed an introductory course to NLP. We made them as part of an end-of-term paper, as one of the choices that they had, build the training corpus for a language for which there were no data available yet. So they chose a language which they natively understood, or at least they could judge well enough to actually judge the annotations. But that wasn't for which there was no NLP toolkit yet. So languages like Aragonese from the north of Spain, or Napolitan from Italy. So there were all sorts of smaller languages typically that people chose to do this. And it was for people a very helpful experience because you can actually see how the computer is learning things, and you see that the lemmatization gets better. It starts doing what children do, basically. It starts to overgeneralize and do other things. And within a small course, people that have absolutely no computational background, they made a training corpus of 5,000 tokens, which with the NLP tools nowadays gives you something like a 95% accurate NLP tool check. So you can get a part of speech tagger for your language within sort of a small course. And based on Corpus Wiki, we built something called Data, which is a graphical interface for working with corpora. So we set up a class which does exactly the same thing, but then using Data rather than Corpus Wiki, which has developed ever since 2012 quite a bit. So it's a graphical environment that is used in quite a lot of teaching environments. And we're trying to set it up so that people actually get helped along as much as possible to build gold standard part of speech stack data set on which they automatically can train an NLP toolchain, a tagger, so that they can then after that actually use it as well. It is also used for other teaching purposes, and it tends to be something which is very usable for people that have absolutely no computational background. So we, for instance, gave a course in the light of the computational the literary studies, in which we had people in Prague during the summer school learn how NLP works, in which they mostly didn't have to do any programming because it's a purely graphical interface, but they nevertheless can see how NLP toolchains work, can see the end result, can correct the end results because it allows you to easily correct things, and build a corpus. In this case, they didn't build a gold standard corpus, they just simply built a corpus on the languages for which there already was. It's a course that we haven't yet given a sense. It's still a pilot project for a course, but we are preparing together with the multilingual group of CLARIN so hackathon sessions in which people actually are invited to come and either online or offline or in person help them to build a data set for to get a tagger in languages for which there is nothing available. And one of the strong ideas behind it is to make sure that you maximally visualize the effort that they put in, so that they not only get the course credits, but also actually are credited for the data set that they make. So the data set is available, fair, usable, and can be used also by other people for training data. The idea is to distribute it in the same way as the universal dependencies are distributed as a Git repository data set, so you can easily get to the data, so that other people can also train them, and that you could make the exercises done with them automatically because they follow the same guidelines as the UD freelance. So these don't have dependencies, but everything else, so lemmatization and stuff, you could also put into all the tools that exist for Colonial already. And furthermore, like the UD community does with things like UD5, we also intend to actually provide the REST interface so that people can also use the tagger. So not only the people that develop the tagger can use them, but also the entire host community. Back when we submitted it as a talk, there was still only an idea. By now, actually, we largely set that up. But in something called UD-Morph. UD-Morph is exactly hence this. It's the idea to set up something parallel to the universal dependencies, but for data that aren't part of speech stack, that aren't dependency parts, so they can't be part of the UD, but nevertheless should be available as training data and other data. So it's a website that like the UD provides access to Git repositories. We want to set it up as a Hugging Face data set as well, so that people can use them even more easily and people can actually train things on it. And within that, we also provide Data as an option to build new data sets without having to do things by hand on the online. I pre-launched it last week, so that we actually show it here so that the see that it actually works. And it currently has 53 corpora that aren't built by people. The only corpora that are in there that are built by people are the ones from the course back in 2012. But they're mostly corporate data sets that are built by other people and are gathered here so you can get access to them. And it currently provides taggers for about 142 languages, and we are actively inviting people to provide more data so that more the taggers can be trained. This is the URL for it, and this is a screenshot of the data set, so you can simply type in data in any language for which there are data. It automatically loads the Universal Declaration of Human Rights so that you have some text to look at. The Universal Declaration exists in some 500 languages, so you get data even if you provide a new language where there isn't anything yet, and it then automatically parses it and gives you the output. I still have put in some screenshots here that you can see how it all works and how you can actually use data to easily have people work with data and how UBMorph actually gives you the output, but unfortunately.
Yes, I'm going to share with you very briefly, I promise, some conclusions of our conversations about the relationships between postgraduate digital humanities program and industries. This follows a joint working group or workshop that was held during the last DARIA annual meeting event in Budapest. We discussed the relationships between digital humanities masters and employment. We believe, and we are sure you agree with us, that the skills acquired within the digital humanities programs degree are transferable by their data or business data. Indeed, we philologists and linguists are the original data scientists working on documents and texts in a lot of languages. But the picture is not entirely triumphant, of course. Some programs in digital humanities are threatened to close or have already been cancelled because they have very few national students. A strong bias of cultural heritage does not seem to be enough for digital humanities degrees in some cases. However, the professional scope for our studies is highly valued by the students. They frequently come to the DH because there is a rumor running students completing a digital humanities master are finding jobs, and often jobs that are less precarious in terms of contracts, length, conditions, and pay. It therefore becomes necessary to identify the gaps between the current conditions of training and the needs of the companies and future employers of DH graduates. That's why we propose to organize that workshop. Our goals were to identify the possible benefits of such a change between the two sectors, identify the professional challenges and new employment opportunity of the DH postgraduate programs on the European scale, identify opportunities and best practices of internships with industry and cultural heritage institutions, strengthen the networking opportunities between master's degrees, and finally explore how large infrastructures such as DARIA and CLARIN can help facilitate the exchange of knowledge transfer between DH programs and industry. So it's time to share some outcomes, some of our outcomes. First, dozens of interviews and previous contacts provided us with some interesting clues to prepare for the event and interesting information to edit a digital booklet with 34 master's degrees on humanities. We had around 30 on-site attendees, directors and representatives of the degrees and stakeholders. They participate by contributing on our Padlet or on Jumbo walls. What were the main issues we addressed? Reaching out to the industry on non-academic partners. What good practices have been identified? A good study of market needs with a clear identification of partners in the region has proved to be a key starting point for a successful experience. In fact, the local context matters. Big cities take advantage of being centers of attraction for recruitment, while smaller cities seem to focus rather on their own cultural heritage management. Inviting companies to explain that what they are doing, the customers and businesses plan, is also good practice, but mass mailing of messages to companies does not seem to be a good strategy. A good source of contacts comes from former students who are already working in companies in the area. Finally, Most of the directors insisted on the importance of selecting students based on their job applications. The more motivated the students are, and the higher their background is, the better impression they will leave on companies, and the better the reputation of the master program will be. Selection makes a difference. Consequently, we agreed that more marketing, more propaganda is required for public engagement. We have to communicate to the industries what we are doing because they know nothing or very little about the field of digital humanities. Some of our colleagues confessed that they have no contact at all with industries. And at the same time, some degrees cannot reach out to more industrial partners because they don't have enough students to prepare. So, concerning the profiles of master degrees internships in digital humanities of their organization, what works and what doesn't. Internships are mandatory for most master degrees or highly recommended, even if some coordinators confess they do not propose internships because it was impossible to bring together different faculties involved in the degree into agreement. Internships provide an effective path to secure employment in commercial companies. At least this is our experience in Madrid, but not in Paris or in Germany, where students are really engaged with the cultural heritage, or they accept unpaid or poorly paid internships in GLAM, or so their own universities, libraries, or archives, where they are sure that they will find a job afterwards anywhere else. In fact, master's degrees focusing on research are very attractive for very good students when they lead to a PhD program, very prestigious in some countries, or an academic career. Close supervision of these internships are of utmost importance. Some universities have their own platform to supervise internships, and this is without any doubt a good practice. Master thesis or report supervised in the frame of industries as a project or proof of concept have proved to be a successful experience too. And all of us agree that it becomes necessary to foster internships that encourage experimental data spaces between cultural heritage, industry, and academia. We launched the idea to create a kind of pool of internships between degrees, taking advantage of the Erasmus program. Even if some directors know that the students become increasingly homebound and they are reluctant to leave Strasbourg, Rennes, Salamanca, Madrid to go for Milan, Munich, or Oslo. Concerning how directors keep track of their alumni and their career paths as a good way to build a network of contacts, first problem, they lack data. Most of the degrees were launched just a couple of years ago, and they haven't enough alumni yet. Surveys are carried out on graduates only 3 or 5 years later. And universities' programs are either very, very early stages, and their outputs are very general, very vague. In the meantime, everything is done on a voluntary basis. Directors have no support from their university, and they are sick and tired of do it yourself because they have no time for tracking students, alumni between multiple other tasks and priorities. So, at most, they have some information from personal contacts with former students, and they invite alumni to some events such as open lectures or webinars. Some universities have tried to let students organize themselves, but that didn't work enough, except in Paris. And finally, a very good practice is to have a LinkedIn group where students are included from the first day of their master. It is a way to create a network for employment and internships. Concerning the impacts of the latest technological developments on their programs, some directors noted that it is difficult to attract students with a technical background to the humanities domain. They recruit mainly students from humanities, cultural, literary studies, linguistics, or translation studies. Nevertheless, more and more students from translation studies move to computational studies, but we should pay attention to this phenomenon. In fact, we noted that strictly computational profiles are not required really by companies because they already have them in the labor market. There are already a lot of engineers. Companies rather ask for graduates that have critical thinking, a humanistic and cultural background, enough digital expertise to lead the project, abilities to communicate with computer scientists, so intermediary people in kind of translators. That's why some degrees pay special attention to professional ethical responsibility and public outreach. Directors insisted on this point. Sorry, 1 minute. The question of what level and what skill students should have in programming is often raised. So, should Python become the second language for students? Is the problem. But all the coordinators agree that the priorities should be on helping students gain confidence in their ability to learn anything. Something interesting, discussions were held around emerging job profiles that our alumni are coming out to the job market. We studied extraordinary case studies, extra because they were not expected, reviewed when the program was launched. We have revealed real new niches of employment, such as academic research, lab and sector, social market, social media, and marketing. Last but not least, master degree representative there to call on CLARIN to play a role in the academia industry collaboration, more completely provide support at the policy level, benchmarking in education, matchmarking services, make the DH course registry attractive for employers as well, support with the use of implementation of new technology. Finally, some further steps we should like to take in the future. We have pointed out some topics for a white paper or best practices handbook. We are preparing the next area annual meeting in Lisbon, focusing on alumni to include their stories and experiences. We dream of a pool of internships and contacts to facilitate European exchanges. And anyway, we will keep working together in the frame of direct line registry working group. And if you are interested, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. And well, this is this has been a project that we've been involved with over the past 3 years. It's actually concluded end of August, so we're now in the fever of reporting and whatnot. Just to put you a bit up to speed, Upskills is an Erasmus Plus strategic partnership, and it's basically a consortium of 8 partners plus some associate partners as well who joined us in the meantime. It has been coordinated by the University of Malta, and the partners are the University of Belgrade, the University of Bologna, CLARIN, which has been pivotal in completing the project, the University of Graz and the University of Rijeka. Plus, we've had 2 partners from Switzerland who benefited from funding with funding from Movetia. That's the University of Geneva and University of Zurich. This is the core team of the consortium. Now, what we've been tackling in this project is some skill gaps and mismatches in students of language-related disciplines. And our aim has been to create a better workforce for the industry and academia on the basis of tackling these gaps in the skills of students of linguistics and language-related degrees. The rationale is that graduates of linguistics and language-related degrees are needed in research and industry jobs, and we can see this much more prominently now than beforehand, obviously, with ChatGPT and all the language model work that has been happening. However, as our needs analysis confirmed, they often lack several skills that would allow them to take on jobs like this. And what we've identified is, first of all, they lack sometimes critical thinking and problem-solving skills. But we're not talking in general. We're talking about critical thinking and problem-solving skills outside what is their comfort zone, so the area in which they probably concentrated while studying their undergraduate degree or whatnot. So if someone is an expert in morphology, they wouldn't be able necessarily, or they wouldn't have the skills to identify problems and solve problems in other areas of language use. They usually lack knowledge of research design and data analysis, again, outside their comfort zone. It has been impressed on us by many companies that they generally lack project management skills, and especially those who have graduated language degrees from more traditional philologies or whatnot, also lack digital skills to a certain extent, which is, as we know, all a number one thing in today's market. The way in which we're trying to tackle these skill gaps has been by creating learning content, and actually today's event will be showcasing the two learning blocks that were developed by the CLARIN team. We have opted to create learning content that's modular and blended, so it can be used in a variety of settings, and also it can be used on a need-be basis. So you can pick and choose different parts of our learning content in order to incorporate in your curricula. We've also played around quite a bit with innovative pedagogies, and we focused on online educational games for this, and I'm going to talk very briefly about this too. We also had a strong focus on real-world application, so the learning is not just about theory or whatever have you. It is based, and it starts from an active perspective, so from actual research questions or industry questions. And finally, we also tried to integrate existing research and research infrastructure, such as CLARIN, into our teaching. So we have, quite a versatile program that we've tried to develop. All of these aims and the way in which we worked can be neatly, summarized into 4 intellectual outputs, which we delivered. First, we have the needs analysis. Then we created dedicated guidelines on research-based teaching. Then we consolidated existing, so we adapted some existing stuff of other online courses, and we also created learning content. And finally, we created educational games for active learning. This is actually, I think, the culmination of our outreach efforts. We have tried to disseminate our findings as much as possible. We've held multiple multiplier events. So there was one in Bologna for the first intellectual output, one in Graz for the third, one in Utrecht for the second, and one in Valletta for the fourth. And we've also, our partners from Switzerland have also organized 2 dedicated Swiss multiplier events, one in Lugano and one in Geneva. The culmination of our efforts has been actually in July, the summer school that took place in Petnica at the Petnica Science Center in Serbia, where we tested our materials with students from the consortium partners. Now, just to give you a very, very brief overview of what we actually did throughout the project, and obviously you can check our website. I think there are flyers as well that Juliana has prepared for you. Starting off with the needs analysis, our needs analysis had 6 components. The first 5 actually led to the production of the 6th one. So we did survey curricula from a number of, we surveyed something like 535 curricula from EU and international courses on linguistics and languages, including translation. We conducted a literature review to check, what the skills are that are needed for the 21st century linguist or language specialist, to put it more aptly. We conducted a corpus-based analysis of the advertisements. We handed out a questionnaire to the language industry, to businesses, and we also conducted interviews with industry representatives. The result of these 5 components and what we actually developed as part of the 6 is a new profile for graduates of language and linguistics degrees, which we called the language data and project specialist, so basically this is the profile for the 21st century, let's say, of our graduates. According to this profile, there are different tasks and responsibilities, and I'm pretty sure that those of you who have been involved with the industry of within the language sector, you'll see that there are some new things that are the focus is shifting to a certain extent. So typical tasks and responsibilities, you get data-oriented tasks. That has been the case forever: linguistic data collection, transcription, annotation, exploration and analysis of data. Then you also have research-oriented tasks, language data research, but also also research on business processes and market needs. And as we know, this keeps becoming more prominent nowadays. Then technical skills, which actually nowadays include a fair amount of digital competencies as well. So we have translation, interpreting, post-editing, development and analysis of software and technological tools. This is actually something that is becoming even more prominent as we go along. And then development, testing, and improvement of machine learning models, which is actually something that I think you'll all agree didn't really exist about 15 years ago or so. And finally, you obviously have organizational skills, and one focus, one point of focus that we also try to tackle with our learning content is that of process management. Obviously, communication with teams, clients, and vendors has been there since forever. Then regarding our second intellectual output, we tried to we focus basically on the process rather than the results of research. So basically, we try to develop some way of harvesting the research process rather than the results of the research within our teaching. And basically, we included our own research into ongoing teaching. We tried to test this out. We came up with a number of guidelines for how this can be done. So you can read our guide and use our templates if you want to apply this sort of approach to your teaching. We also included, apart from including our own research, which is academic to the biggest extent, we also try to include industry-based research into teaching, and this we did with a collaboration with our associate partners who are industry members. Then we also provided guidance, systematic guidance, as you'll see if you read the report, for students seeking to pursue their own research agenda. And last but not least, this has been very central to CLARIN's contribution. We also provide guidance about the use of research infrastructures in research-based teaching, so that people don't need, like lecturers, don't need to reinvent the wheel when they want to, to essentially use a data set in order to get their students to conduct some piece of research. Then for the third part, which is actually the focus of this, and I'm going to skim over it a bit because you're going to hear a lot more during the presentation of the CLARIN's output in this regard. We consolidated, so we adapted existing learning material and essentially created new learning material. The emphasis here is on active and task-based learning, so it's not a lecture sort of thing. It's more of a task-oriented set of materials. Here, as you can see, we have a whole load of different areas that we try to focus on. So from scientific research, analytical thinking, and whatnot, to project management, collecting data from human participants, corpora, automatic speech recognition, as you're going to be hearing, programming, about machine learning, and then statistics and data standards and repositories, which is actually one of the, I think, is a unique course in the sense that it's not really on offer by any other, as an output of any other related project. And finally, we also investigated quite closely the use of educational games for active learning. So educational games, as you probably have heard, provide unique cognitive stimulation and motivation and opportunities to continuously and automatically assess the learner's ability. So against this background, and in order to avoid having this sort of like lecture-like delivery of our learning content, we try to adapt educational games to fit our goals, and we also try to implement off-the-shelf games in our materials and gamification too. The result of this process has been the creation of 3 games. The first one is the Upskills Maze game, which is a nice way of gamifying your quizzes. Rather than using Moodle, you can just use this nice interface where you can put in questions and students need to escape the maze by answering correctly. Then we have Guess the Language, which is a game that was developed at the University of Geneva, and it actually uses a game design that you all know of. It's based on Guess Who, the kids game, and it actually helps you teach how language works. And finally, we have our big game, which is Toplang, which actually is a simulation game where the student needs to complete some tasks and basically make some choices as they navigate their space as an intern in a research and development development company that focuses on language. And basically, Toplang can be used both for learning purposes and assessment purposes. And there is a manual that you can also use in order to create your own version of Toplang for any type of course. So to sum up, this was a very, very, very brief summary of what we've done, what we want to achieve with all this. And hopefully, by the more our materials have taken, the more we will reach this aim, is that we want to first prepare students better for the reality of the job market. It doesn't, in this day and age, it's not just enough to just know linguistic theory. You need to be able to apply it in different things and to use tools as well. We also want to sensitize academics with respect to the skills that employers are looking for. And basically, I'm pretty sure that we've all faced a situation where people are very hesitant to employ new technologies or new things in their teaching. We want to raise awareness, and a third and very important aspect of what we're doing is that we also wanted to raise awareness among employers about the skills of graduates of linguistics and language-related degrees. As you know, many companies, especially those who don't, really know anything about linguistics or what we're studying when doing language, they tend to want just computer science graduates. But it has transpired through our focus interviews and the survey that actually, once they try this route, they want also someone who knows more about language and linguistics. Basically, yes, we created engaging modular learning content, and this is freely accessible to everyone. And the whole point of this learning content is to try and promote active learning, task and research-based learning. So I would invite you to just navigate the learning content and the games and, pick and choose what you want to use for your curricula. With this in mind, I think that we can move on to the presentation of the CLARIN learning content at this stage.
Yeah, so in Nijmegen, I am giving a course, I'm presenting a course on automatic speech recognition. And that is on a master level. The course is attended mostly by students from data science and AI, and a few of them are from linguistics. So the course is quite technical in the total set of courses given within the Faculty of Art. And therefore, the problems during this course are, this ASR course, are very related to questions that were put on the table by Koenraad, by Amalia, and others. So it's how to narrow the gap between technically oriented courses on the one hand and maybe linguistically oriented students. So in the upskills project, Henk and I and also Juliana have been working on a Moodle, which is focused on presenting a course about speech recognition, automatic speech recognition, to linguistically oriented students, bachelor level. So it means that we have to scale down all the technicalities to a level that we assume everybody should be able to understand. And we then, during the development of this course, it was essential to think about what we mean by understand. Because most students are able to run Python scripts, but to modify Python scripts is already might be a bit more difficult, and to write Python scripts maybe, of course, even more difficult. And the typical problem that we face in this master ASR course that we did is that people from with a technical background, say data science, AI, they are very able, very manageable, very prolific in writing scripts. However, if we start from a linguistic problem, like, for example, decoding audio into words, like ASR is assumed to do, then they can compare methods. They go to Hugging Face, they compare different settings of everything. But the translation of what they get back into the research question on the linguistic domain is almost absent. So there is a gap not only in the technicality level, but also in the conceptual level. So some people even ask me what their research question is. And not that's infrequent, quite often. So, okay, this is about the course that we developed in Upskills. And as ASR is a sort of booming thing because it's related on AI. And you know, AI is booming at the moment. So during this course, the whole ASR field is moving into deep network, Hugging Face, what have you nowadays. So in order to make bachelor students more aware of the ASR issues, we still go in the direction of old-fashioned ASR to explain the modularities, the components we need. And then after understanding these components, they are much better able to understand the novel deep learning-based approaches. So here we still improvement. No, okay. So here you see the basic blocks that this Moodle provides. So we have the speech signal, and what is essential to know about the speech signal? We have acoustic features. So the next step, what do we extract from the audio in order to understand what is that being said? We have to talk about the bass, so pretty conceptual, but essential to understand what's going on under the hood. Okay, classical architectures. So it is a typically old-fashioned module structure, novel architectures. So that's end-to-end, deep learning, blah blah. Then we have fault line. That's a sort of special case of ASR. Essential if you want to work with data for which you have annotation, but you want to align. So giving the concepts of sets of words and so on. So it is essential for many people among us, I think. Data selection, understanding the role of ASR in so speech recognition in dialogue systems, language models, and then as a defense module is writing and thesis. And the Moodle is providing the students with examples of topics that they could use for their thesis. And so as you can see. So the aim is, of course, to bridge the gap between students with a linguistic background and ASR as a technical topic, and to provide a transparent levels presentation of ideas at appropriate levels of whatever it is. So ASR is rapidly progressing right now, and therefore that role, the new role of AI in ASR, is not covered in detail in this model, because that's impossible. If you write anything on this, it will be outdated in 2 months from now. So you have to keep it conceptual. It is not explicitly meant for study material. So the philosophy is that the students take an active approach, but guided by some local teaching. It's modular in the sense that the action 1 minute ago, and the quizzes. So in the model implementation contains quizzes, multiple choice about all these conceptual blocks. And but the explicit instruction is also to renew all these quiz questions in order to have fresh explanation, examples, and you have to refresh the pool of quizzes anyway. So unfortunately, there is no automatic quiz generation tool yet. But it would be nice to suppose you have a sort of chapter in your textbook, and you could automatically generate quizzes based on NLP, like could be nice. could be very fruitful in this case, because inventing 100 questions took me a lot of time. Okay. Oh yeah, and the PR that we use is basically this. So why ASR in a linguistic environment? It's quite technical, but as we know, we ourselves built our linguistic awareness based between 0 and 5 on audio, no text there. So all tools that help to analyze audio information, audio signals might help. So for communication analysis, meeting transcriptions, the caretaker audio analysis, language acquisition from audio, and so on. Yeah. So basically, the statement is a bit in the text in here. To really understand how we acquire language, we have to go into the audio, and therefore a massive amount of tools that can help to understand what happens in the audio with respect to production and perception might be further helpful.
So now I will give an introduction to the course that Daria and I and Francesca developed. We tried to develop a basic course to show teachers how to teach students about CLARIN. And the focus was on the core services. I will show you, those of you who don't know which are the CLARIN core services, I will show you in a minute. So the course the workload is estimated because we have never piloted the whole course in university setting. We estimate that if you teach it as a whole, it's about 60 CPS. And then we also have an additional student project for another 1 or 2 CPS. And these are the contributors, or the contributors who check the material and gave feedback and improved it. I have to thank Carola Tiberius, who is here, who piloted the course, part of the course at the University of Leiden, and Sandra Salansky, she piloted the course in a summer school, the Meda Summer School, and Tanya Visik, where is she? Yeah, she's there. I would like to thank her as well because she gave me some feedback on an assignment that I developed for students of translation, how to find data in CLARIN for a translation assignment. Yeah, so I would say that this course is a community effort, and I'm really proud, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm very grateful. These are the learning outcomes in a nutshell. So basically, we aim to, we started explaining the main concepts related to the research data repository and the role they play in linguistic research data lifecycle in the context of open science and FAIR. And of course, we showed, we created an inventory of research data repositories who host data for language research among CLARIN. Besides CLARIN, there are also many others out there. So we tried to provide a good overview of that. And then once we explain that, we show how to find and use certified repositories to discover, share, publish, and archive language resources at the end of the research project. And then how to use all these integrated services that are available to CLARIN to teach students how to process and annotate data, different types of corpora, for example, based on standards and formats in the community. And last, yes, here you can see an overview of all the units. And the last, unit 5, we tried to compile or identify tutorials within CLARIN and also Daria. We used some tutorials from Daria Campus, and we tried to revamp the bits and edit an additional assignment and examples to teach students about legal and ethical issues when managing language data. And in collaboration with, data citation, of course, based on the linguistic handbook that Kunrad, I believe, was also involved in the chapter about citing data and linguistics. Yeah. It was a very good chapter to help me understand what the issues are and create a nice presentation for the teachers that they could use in class and to teach students, raise awareness about good citation practices. And yes, in collaboration with the University of Bologna, we created a student project in which the infrastructure is used to search data, to search for language data, corpora, of course, to answer specific research question, and then also try to teach the students how to archive their data set, the corpus they create in the project, in one of the available data and repository in this case. So if you go to Moodle, you have some introductory slides about how to use the unit, the module, sorry. And then here, like what you see, again, we have the presentation format. And I must, what's something that Stavros didn't mention is that we exported all the learning content from Moodle, and we deposited in the CLARIN Slovenian repository in a Moodle format, from which you can basically download everything at once, and then try to upload it to your own Moodle system, version 3+8 or something like that. You will find all the instructions there. And of course, when you access the Moodle, you will also be able to download a certain module directly from here. You have already a ready-made file as well. Okay, so who is the target audience for this course? So maybe teachers at the BA/MA level, but during piloting, we learned that some universities found useful also at the PhD level. So it is a combination of depends, of course, what the students learn at the BA/MA level, and you will have to see for yourself what's suitable. And then, of course, I would be very happy if the trainers in the CLARIN network will try to use this training material for train the trainers workshop maybe, or in summer schools, conferences, events to raise awareness about also these CLARIN core services. And the content is pretty general. So basically, if you start from general and you add your own use cases in teaching about how you use the infrastructure and have your own research questions, I think you can develop a nice course. Okay, so how you can use this course? If you know the infrastructure, you can go directly to Moodle and then browse and pick the content that you like. If you don't know the infrastructure, I recommend, together with other teachers in the consortium, we compiled a guide, Integrating Research Infrastructures into Teaching, which gives an overview of all the CLARIN services. And I have some mini guides there about each service. I have here a screenshot of the guide. It's browsable on the project website, and then you can also download it from Zenodo. And then I tried to link each chapter to directly to resources on Moodle. So basically, it's a guide of how to use the course on Moodle with some additional explanation and additional resources that are available in CLARIN. Just quickly going back to this slide, this gives an overview of the main services, core services that are covered during the course. So basically, how to use the DLO to find resources, how to process them with the switchboard, and then how to use the virtual collection registry. I was surprised in a way that teachers didn't know about the existence of the service. I think we had asked at some point that the virtual collection registry could be used by teachers in the classroom to compile, for example, a collection of data sets that the teacher would like to use in a specific course. So that in those cases when students are not able to find the right data sets to answer a research question. So the VCR could be used for that purpose, create a collection of virtual data sets. You can also use it to pull resources from the web, for example, and if you want to cite them and share them with your students, you can use that as well. So I hope it will be used more often from now on. And then, of course, federated content search. I know that the developers team are working hard to improve this service. So it's a basic concordancer, how to find linguistic patterns across multiple corpora, which is hosted by different CLARIN centers at once. And then, of course, the resource families. So to show students where to find many teachers in the Oxford Consortium were not aware of the existence of all these resources that are also directly available via an integrated concordancer and easily accessible to students. So yes, I got some nice feedback about all these services and how they can be integrated into teaching. And then, of course, regarding the depositing services, we had a lot of discussion. Of course, at the BA level, teachers will not have that advanced research skills to create a high-quality data set and deposit it in a CLARIN repository. But maybe, I think I know from Nieta, at the MA level, you are teaching research data management. I think teachers, the students are required to create also basic research data management plan and select a repository for archiving the data at the end of the project. So RDM is being taught more and more, also starting from the BA level, and the students are required to be aware about archiving, how to archive resources at the end of the project, which is very good at the PhD level, or first at the MA level, because the teachers start preparing guiding PhD students. They complain that the students, they don't know anything about RDM. So this has been shown, this lack of skills has been shown also at in various projects at the EU level, that it is really necessary to start teaching RDM, basic RDM skills at the BA level. Okay, so how to use the blog? Here you have some options that I tried to imagine how you could use this course, but of course, if you have other, you will have to try and let me know what works for you. I've also, when you pilot this, if you pilot this with the students, you will have access to some questionnaires that you can share with your students, so they can use to give feedback. We have proofread the course many times, but of course there will always be typos and things that are not clear and inconsistent. So feel free to share your feedback, and I'll try to export the course from Moodle and keep updating it and improving it. And then, of course, the piloting questionnaire for teachers. Okay, and this is these are just some examples of how the course has been used by University of Bologna, for example, which I just said. How to use the infrastructure in research project to find and query corpora. We also taught the students during the summer school in Petnica this year about the FAIR principles for research data management. And then, of course, how to archive they archived their presentations at the end of the summer school on Zenodo, which was quite a big step for them because they didn't know about GitHub, Zenodo, and all that stuff. So they learned. They were very proud that they learned that. Yes, and then we also had a nice internship following based on this nice collaboration in the project. Okay, so then if you'd like to reuse, adapt, and maybe also localize in another language, just please need to send me an email, and then we'll try to find out solutions. And I can also guide you, of course, to the process. And if you reuse any of the upstairs materials, please share your experience by applying to this call using CLARIN in training and education that we will have again next year. And share your materials with us. And if you'd like to network and share best practices in teaching, follow our trainers mailing list. Thank you, and please stay in touch.